Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, a massive opportunity for LSU to really continue the momentum on the recruiting trail. You're set to host a monster recruiting weekend over the next couple of days. Now, I want to get into some of my favorite names that will be on campus for LSU, but I want to start with kind of a broad conversation regarding how LSU is going about their business on the recruiting trail, specifically in this 2026 class, where you are seeing them put a strong emphasis on the state of Louisiana early on in this process. Now, LSU needs to recruit the state. We kind of all know that. Why I think it's so important to emphasize it early on in the process is, hey, you start landing some commitments from some of these top kids in the state. It's a lot easier to hold on to some of these kids who are in the state of Louisiana than grabbing a commitment early on from California. And then you got to fight USC, fight Oregon to get your paperwork signed in December. You saw USC learn this the hard way in the 2025 class, where early on they prioritized some kids from the state of Georgia, ended up landing the commitments of both Justice Terry and Isaiah Gibson. Well, they didn't stick because when you land those commitments that early, it's hard to play defense for the next 6 to 8 months. When you lock down these kids in the state of Louisiana early on in the process, it's easier to play defense. You can get them on campus a multitude of times. You can go out and see them on Friday nights. Clean up your backyard first. Then you can go across the country to bring in talent. And I'm certainly not getting up here and banging the table for LSU not to go across. This is the LSU Tigers. I mean, this is a program that has a lot of pull across the country, but prioritizing the in-state stuff early on, I think makes a lot of sense. And for LSU, you start taking an early look at these top kids in the state of Louisiana. It's a really, really talented class coming out of the state. If you can clean it up in this 2026 class, you're probably sitting with a top 5 class in the country come National Signing Day. Want to get into some of the names. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the LSU fans. It's been a blast talking this program in the transfer portal the last couple of weeks. Many of y'all who've been rocking with the fellas for a while now know we are starting to focus our attention on the high school recruiting trail. It sounds like for LSU, it's going to be a fun next couple of weeks. So appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. In really one of my favorite prospects in the 2026 class, Lamar Brown from Louisiana, Baton Rouge. This has to be one of the top targets for LSU, regardless of position in the 2026 cycle. What I love most about Lamar Brown, I think this kid could play all 5 spots on the offensive line. Now, he has a guard center body, an interior offensive lineman body. He's not the longest cat that you see. He's got tackle athleticism, and there's no question about that. He's got to put a little bit more weight on the frame, and he's up to around 295 pounds. So he is starting to look like an SEC offensive lineman going into his senior year. This kid's athleticism is next to none in this 2026 class. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Carius Kern, who's committed to LSU or I think enrolled with LSU now in the 2025 cycle, where you look at the kid and say, I don't know if he can play tackle because he doesn't have that ideal length. But then you turn on the film and say that he's an elite athlete that has tackle athleticism all day long. And so you bring in a guy like Lamar Brown, he could play center. I think he might be the best position, might be at center. Certainly would be a really good guard. Also could be flexed out at tackle and really might be a really good tackle as well. I think sometimes we get a little too wrapped up with length and frame and forget to say, all right, well, if you want to play tackle, you got to be a good athlete too. Lamar Brown is an elite athlete, state champ in the shot put. You see that power on the football field as well. Climbs to the second level in the run game. He's a box checker. And again, at 6'4", 285, 290 pounds, you know he's a damn good athlete if he's a top 10 national kid in the 2026 class. Love this kid. Massive target for LSU. Another name that I'll go to here, and again, you're seeing an emphasis on state of Louisiana, right? I believe LSU has 6 commitments in this 2026 class, 5 of which in state. They are going to try to clean up in the state of Louisiana. Another guy that I really like, Blaine Bradford. And what I like about him is, again, some position flex. He's 6'1", 200 pounds, loves to come downhill and fit the run game. I almost think that depending on what he looks like going into a senior year, if he's around 215 pounds, I almost think he could play linebacker because he loves being physical. He loves being around the line of scrimmage. And in this modern era of college football, you got to have athletes at linebacker. So maybe put a little bit more weight on him and have him play off ball linebacker. Certainly could play nickel, could play the safety spot too. Elite athlete with really good physicality. Bet on this kid all day long, especially with some of that position flex that you see. Another name, and obviously a last name that is very familiar to LSU fans, Darius McKinley, obviously Dom's little brother. Not quite the frame that Dominic McKinley has, right? Dominic McKinley goes around 6'6". Darius a little bit more short, compact. He plays out on the edge at the high school ranks. I think he'll probably kick inside to the 3 tech when he gets to the collegiate ranks. And this is a guy that you got to feel really good about LSU's chances to land, quite frankly. Probably got to put a little bit more weight on. Probably never going to be that 330-pound guy because he just doesn't have the frame to do so. But with the stockier, more compact, quite frankly, shorter frame, you see a lot of good leverage on his film. When you're 6'2" and you're going up against 6'5" offensive linemen, you have the ability to get underneath their pads. Now the problem, or not problem, but the challenge is, hey, can we get the weight on this kid on that 6'2" frame for him to hold up on the inside? The power's there, and the twitch and juice off the line of scrimmage is there too. Could stay out on the edge. I probably like him a little bit more on the inside because he is a little bit of a stiff guy. I don't know if that elite upside as a pass rusher is there out on the edge, but I mean, you're betting on this kid. You know what I mean? Now, going to another guy, and this is probably one of my favorite defensive linemen we see in this class, Dylan Berymon. You turn on the film with this kid. He's, for lack of better terms, a fire hydrant. 6'1.5", 305 pounds. He is short. He is compact. He is extremely twitchy off the line of scrimmage. And that's one of the things that really does lack for a lot of these bigger defensive linemen at the high school ranks. They just use their size to overwhelm opposing high school competition. You don't see them fire out of their stands. You don't see them have a lot of twitch and power off the line of scrimmage. This kid does. I mean, he is a fire hydrant that can do all that dirty work. You mean like taking on double teams, two gapping, keeping your linebackers clean, all stuff that is not going to get reflected on the stat sheet, but really important if you want to have a good defense. But he also can give you some juice in the pass rush. Is a guy that has a very, very good first step, that the power that he brings to the table combined with that first step, I think is going to give a lot of interior offensive linemen some problems. We talk about this all the time. These kind of bodies at the high school ranks, you got to go out and land, because look, LSU, we saw LSU do a lot of really good things in the transfer portal. That one question you still might have is bodies on the inside of the defensive line. That's because it's just hard to address that position in the transfer portal. So if you can stack these kind of bodies on the high school ranks, then you don't have to go out and address these positions in the portal. Dylan Berymon, a guy that I really like from the state of Louisiana. Last one from the state, and then we're going to talk about one out-of-state prospect, Jabari Mack. A little bit longer than a guy like Aaron Anderson, but kind of reminds me of that kind of guy. Elite ability with the football in his hands. You see the long speed, and I think the long speed is there, but when you turn on the film, the favorite thing you have about Jabari Mack is what he does in terms of making people miss and being explosive and dynamic with the football in his hands. Look, this is an LSU offense that is predicated on space. I don't think there's many offensive coordinators that do a better job across the country than Joe Sloan manufacturing space for his wide receivers to operate after the catch. Jabari Mack would be a very good fit. I think he could play the boundary, probably could play the slot as well. Again, and has some nice film on the defensive side of the football too. Just an overall athlete that you really like. Dangerous with the football in his hands. That's one of the things we look for when we're looking at wide receivers. Last one, Nolan Wilson from the state of Mississippi. He won this high school in Mississippi. It just puts out a ton of talent into the college ranks. 24/7 Sports has him as a defensive lineman. I probably like him more out on the edge. He's really good off the line of scrimmage, really good at running that arc, so to speak, and beating tackles on the outside shoulder. I guess what I'm trying to say is his best ability is what he does in space, attacking the outside shoulder. Talk about where you want to play him. You want to keep him at the position what allows him to work best, and that is outside shoulder, running the arc, being kind of that speed rusher. Now at 6'4", 240, he does have some power in his hands as well, but that's kind of what I like most about him. Yes, could he get up to 290 pounds, play the three tech? Yeah, he absolutely could. I just think is that the ideal position for a guy like Nolan Wilson? I'd probably say not. Really, really, one, LSU's off to a very good start in the 2026 class. There's a lot of really good names that LSU seems to be in a really good spot with going into 2026. That this could be a class that's really good for LSU. And you look at how they're going about building their roster, really crushed it in the transfer portal, continue to recruit really solid high school classes, even though it probably didn't end the way LSU fans wanted in 2025. It's still a very good class. If you can consistently stay in the top 8 on the high school recruiting trail and then supplement in the portal, that's the recipe to creating national championship caliber football teams. And I think Brian Kelly and LSU are doing that. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If we do get some commitments coming out of the weekend, we will be breaking them down, diving into some film. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.